Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Barakahakwadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure unto the end. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson, and I'll be reading from an article on npr.org titled, Trump Administration Seeks to Roll Back Protections for Imperiled Species and Habitat. As we're going to see in this article, this is just the man of sin, the son of perdition, or utter destruction. Esau Edom, the so-called white man, doing what he does best, completely turning the earth out of course and destroying it. Because, as it says in Psalm 17, verse 13, the wicked is the sword of the Lord, and the wicked, as pursuant to Malachi 1, verse 4, the border of wickedness is Esau. And as it says in Job 9, verse 24, the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. And when you read in Genesis 27, it says Esau's blessing would be the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven from above. So, we are in Esau's little season of his final rulership where he has controlled the planet right now. And just look at everything around you. Destroyed environments, destroyed people, destroyed food. Everything is on the decline. And, we're on the verge of World War III, where nuclear weapons will be used. What does it say in Revelation chapter 6, verse 4? That red horse, which represents Esau, would take peace from the earth. And, if this man was allowed to rule indefinitely, this planet would be turned into a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland. But, as it says in Matthew 24, verse 22, that's not the case. And except those days should be shortened, which, these days are clearly being shortened. Back in, I believe it was in August, they recorded the shortest ever day in human history. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, because Esau Edom, the sword of the Lord, is a madman who won't stop until he's stopped by Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, continuing to do what he does, contrary to the laws, statutes, and commandments of the scriptures, destroying the earth. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is hastening the end of Esau's rulership to take him out of power and then set up the rightful rulers, the children of Israel, who are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today, beginning with the elect of the nation of Israel, who are going to govern this earth by the laws, statutes, and commandments. And this ship is going to be turned right side up. But let's get into a little bit of this article. President Nero 47's administration moved Wednesday to roll back protections for imperiled species and places they live, reviving a suite of changes to Endangered Species Act regulations from the Republicans' first term that were blocked under the former Democratic president, Joe Biden, which doesn't matter, Republican or Democrat. At the end of the day, the whole system is rigged, and these Edomites, don't have a good will in their body, especially with their elite rulers. The proposed changes include the elimination of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's blanket rule that automatically protects animals and plants when they are classified as threatened. Government agencies instead would have to craft species-specific rules for protections, a potentially lengthy process. The administration's announcement answers long-standing calls for revisions to the Endangered Species Act from Republicans in Congress and industries, including oil and gas, mining, and agriculture. Critics argue the landmark 1973 environmental law has been wielded too broadly to the detriment of economic growth. And that's all it is with these devils at the end of the day. Power, which they, cover up with the label economic growth. As it says in Habakkuk, he is as death and cannot be satisfied. He is as hell in death and cannot be satisfied. These Edomites, even though they have control of the planet right now, just want more and more. The whole model of, capitalism is what, continued growth and expansion, which, is just not possible. It goes completely against, the laws, statutes, and commandments. For example, look at the agricultural industry. They constantly till the ground year round. But when you read in the law, you're allowed to till the ground for 6 years and then give it 1 year of rest, the 7th year, a land Sabbath, to allow that land to, regain its nutrients. But Esau doesn't do that. Hence why, the fruits and vegetables with each successive decade continue to lose their nutrient value. And then you have GMO foods out here, fruits and vegetables without seeds, just, people have to buy supplements to get the nutrients that they would naturally get from, fruits and vegetables and other things. We have this hyper industrialized society, which, humanity was never meant to live in, which pollutes the air, pollutes the water, pollutes the environment. Lands get strip mined for their resources, leading to animals getting put on the endangered species list or having to leave their environment. The list can go on and on. And, down here in Louisiana, they have something called Cancer Alley, which, look it up. It's a stretch of refineries, going from around, outside of Kenner, to anybody who's familiar with it, all the way to like Baton Rouge, of just refineries with neighborhoods, schools, and communities built around them. And it's called Cancer Alley because people living near those refineries are getting all sorts of health ailments. That's what you get with the wicked bearing rule, who does everything clean contrary to the scriptures in the name of more power, money, and greed, which this is Psalms chapter 82. I'm going to read verses 4-5. Deliver the poor and needy, the Israelites, beginning with the elect. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked, whom the earth has been given into the hands of. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness, spiritual darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. Esau, Edom, doing everything clean contrary to the laws, statutes, and commandments. Hence why this earth and the animals and the people in it are completely out of course, going against their nature. This is Isaiah chapter 24. I'm going to read verses 4-5. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty or the proud people of the earth do languish. And especially over here in America, we can see these haughty people languishing. Just look at everything that Esau pushes on the people. Democracy, feminism, alphabet rights, so-called equality, capitalism, socialism, and communism, which ain't any goddamn better. And just look at the results. You have a bunch of alphabet people running around. You have broken families, single parent households, women being complete harlots out here. I was watching a video earlier by the elder brother Malcolm of the Chicago camp, and he was profiling an Edomite who was complaining that you can't build a family in a system that rewards breaking up families, with the child support, child court laws, and, these government benefits that they give women to be single. This whole society is a a death society, a death style, hence why these people, the haughty people, are languishing out here just through. Verse 5, the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. Esau, Edom doing everything clean contrary to the scriptures, causing the environment, the people, the animals to, languish on it, which when we get that word languisheth, it's H535, amal, to be weak, to droop, to languish, to be exhausted, to be or grow feeble. And that's everything you look around at in the year 2025. But environmentalists warned the changes could cause years-long delays in efforts to save species such as monarch butterfly, Florida manatee, California spotted owl, and North American wolverine. We would have to wait until these poor animals are almost extinct before we can start protecting them. That's absurd and heartbreaking, said Stephanie Couros with the Center of Biological Diversity. Scientists and government agencies say extinctions are accelerating globally because of habitat loss and other pressures. And if those days were not shortened, no flesh would be saved. The earth is languishing and defiled under the inhabitants thereof. Nero 47 has made oil and gas production a centerpiece of his presidency and sought to strip away environmental regulations that impede development. Other pending proposals from the administration would revise the definition of harm under the Endangered Species Act and potentially bypass special protections for logging projects in national forests and on public lands. And keep that word logging in mind. We're going to get to that later. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum said in a statement that the administration was restoring the Endangered Species Act to its original intent while respecting the livelihoods of Americans who depend on our land and resources. These revisions end years of legal confusion and regulatory overreach, delivering certainty to states, tribes, landowners, and businesses while ensuring conservation efforts remain grounded in sound science and common sense, Burgum said in a statement. Another proposed change tasks officials with analyzing economic impacts when deciding whether habitat is critical to a species' survival, which, pretty much, hey, if we can get along with minimal losses, then hey, screw the environment. It's all about those shekels. And you just look at the F to the D to the A. They allow, harmful, chemicals and other elements into your food and drink if the toxicity level is beneath what would be considered harmful. But when you think about it, that single bottle or container may have a level below the toxicity level, but if you're constantly consuming it day after day, it builds up. Complete madness and hypocrisy and semantics out here being used. But I'm gonna jump around, just hit the main points. Proposals would undermine protections, critics say. Kristen Boyles with the environmental law firm Earth Justice said the changes undermine protections even more than in Trump's first term. That includes allowing the Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries Services to not count negative effects on species if those impacts are not regulated by agencies themselves, Boyles said. But, just look at the, the F to the D to the A. They allow, harmful, chemicals and other elements into your food and drink if the toxicity level is beneath what would be considered harmful. But when you think about it, that single bottle or container may have a level below the toxicity level, but if you're constantly consuming it day after day, it builds up. Complete madness and hypocrisy and semantics out here being used. No, no, The services are required to prevent harmful consequences to species, not ignore them, she said. Nero 47 officials during his first term also rolled back protections for individual species, including the northern spotted owl and gray wolf. The spotted owl decision was reversed in 2021 after officials said Nero 47's political appointees used faulty science to justify opening millions of acres of West Coast forest to potential logging. Protections for wolves across most of the U.S. were restored by the federal court in 2022. So with this article, but hey, again, the man of sin, the son of perdition, doing what he does best, destroying out here. But let's get back to these precepts, because like I brought out in that Matthew 24 verse 22, for the elect's sake these days are being shortened, and Esau Edom has just about reached the bounds which he cannot pass, which when this devil is finally taken out of power, the whole earth is going to rejoice. But this is Isaiah chapter 14. I'm going to start at verse 4. Thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, Babylon the Great, the United States of America. And the ultimate king are these elites that really pull the strings behind the scenes, like, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. But who's their front man for this corporation? Nero 47, who, as we were reading about in that article, is looking to pull back all these environmental protection laws in the name of big business. That thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. Yahweh hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers, Esau being taken out of power. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth. All these wars for resources, dropping atomic bombs on people, giving people GMO foods to eat, so that they can get ill and have to go to these Red Cross centers to be sold petroleum-based medications to, make the symptoms even worse. Cell and Wi-Fi radiation further destroying people. And lest we forget, I didn't even bring this up yet, these microplastics out here, which when you look at the research of that, destroys people on a genetic level. And inside, the average person's brain is enough microplastics to make a small spoon. But as I said, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing, because they're finally going to have this cancer, this, parasite off their back. Yeah, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon saying, since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. Even nature is going to rejoice, because you Edomites, what do? You have something called deforestation, these logging industries, strip mining lands for their resources. And you Edomites don't even differentiate from what trees you cut down. Wood is just wood in your opinion, which according to the law, there are some trees you keep up and some trees you cut down, for wood and housing and stuff like that. But you don't give a damn. It's all about the shekels at the end of the day. And remember what we read in these back in the article. The spotted owl decision was reversed in 2021 after officials said Nero 47's political appointees used faulty science to justify opening millions of acres of West Coast forests to potential logging and, cutting down trees in mass numbers and also destroying animals' environments that rely on those trees. those specific type of environments. And what did it say further up in here? Nero 47 has made oil and gas production a centerpiece of his presidency and sought to strip away environmental regulations that impede development. Other pending proposals from the administration would revise the definition of harm under the Endangered Species Act and potentially bypass species protections for logging projects in national forests and on public lands. Again, yeah, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller, no logger is come up against us. So, hey, all of nature and people are going to rejoice when you Edomites are finally taken out of power, because, the way you rule is contrary to righteousness in the scriptures. So the whole earth is languishing because of it. And, the spirit of creation right now is groaning for the manifestation of the sons of God. As it says in Romans chapter 8, I'm going to read verses 19, and I'm going to jump to 22. For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God, the children of Israel. Again, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who are going to govern this earth under the laws, statutes, and commandments. Verse 22, for we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. Animals, losing their habitats and being put to the verge of extinction. These people being destroyed from all these different environmental factors as a result of the way Esau, Edom governs, etc., etc. As we read in Isaiah 14, when thou art taken out of power, none hindereth, and the whole earth is going to rejoice at your downfall. This is Psalms 96. I'm going to read verses 10 to 13. Say among the heathen that Yahweh reigneth, which is what the men of the Lord, the prophets, chiefly of GMS or Great Millstone, are doing right now, as well as the brothers that come in the spirit of GMS, reading these scriptures and telling you that this earth is the Lord's, that he exists, and that his people are going to rule in righteousness while the wicked are going to be taken out of power. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously through his ambassadors on earth, the children of Israel, which, as it says in Proverbs 29, verse 2, when the righteous are in authority, governing this earth under the laws, statutes, and commandments and the ordinances of the Lord, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. He who smote the people in wrath and ruled the nations in anger. Let the heavens rejoice, the sky, in, low orbit space, because there's going to be no more chemtrails or space junk floating around. And let the earth be glad. Let the sea roar and the fullness thereof. No more pollution or garbage in the ocean. Let the field be joyful and all that is therein. These animals in their natural habitats, not worrying about their habitats being destroyed or being hunted to extinction. Then shall the trees of the wood rejoice, even the fir trees shall rejoice at thee, because no feller is come up against us before Yahweh, for he cometh to judge the earth. He shall judge the world with righteousness and the people with his truth through his people. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. And when you Edomites are taken out of power, you, along with these other heathen nations, are going to go into 1,000 years of hardcore bondage and slavery, building up the kingdom of heaven. But after that first 1,000 years, the other heathens are going to be allowed to go back to their lands and finally live at peace and, reap the benefits of a righteous rulership under righteous rulers. But as for you Edomites, this is Revelation 11, verse 18, and the nations, the heathen nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, the spiritually dead, that they should be judged, the heathens going into that first 1,000 years in the kingdom of heaven as slaves, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, the elect, the first fruits of the kingdom of heaven, who these days are being shortened for the sake of, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth, the wicked, whom the earth has been given into the hands of. So after that first 1,000 years, go read Obadiah 1, verse 18. Every Edomite, man, woman, child, young and old, are going to be gathered up and permanently cold from this planet by fire, a Basraban fire. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere, Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharella.